Welcome back to the lounge, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah. Oh, I saw the YouTube side over there. I got confused. I was looking at the wrong screen. It's okay. Hi guys, how you doing? Why is Steven?
I don't know. I was trying to maintain a serious face.
Very intense.
All I could do was death stare at the camera.
All right.
I don't know what else I was doing there.
So it is History Unhinged week, which means that right now we are in the History Unhinged studio, which is the same studio. We just shoot the regular Lore Lodge show over there, kind of. But yeah, we've got Stephen Bell here with us from Stukuyi and History of Everything, and his wonderful dark wife Gabby over in the corner. You don't have to come on screen. I just was.
She's just hiding. No one can see you. She's hiding herself right now. There's no camera pointed at you.
So for tonight's show, it is going to be standard Lore Lodge. Something a little bit more on the history bend side of things, but mainly the conspiracy theory side. And Steven's here with us for History Unhinged. So figured that might as well drag him onto this and force him to contribute.
Thankfully, he was willing to.
Yeah, he was very willing to. It didn't require that much convincing.
After Tartaria, I lost most of my brain cells, which affect my decision-making capabilities, but that's besides the
Tartaria
point.
was rough. We hurt you.
It finally brought him down to our level.
You realize that on your camera, you are cut off, right?
Yeah, see, that's the problem of making adjustments within 30 seconds of going live.
That camera was pointed at you in the right position all day.
Oh, I had way too much headroom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway.
I might fix it while you're in the middle of a rant.
That sounds good. That sounds like a plan. So tonight,
yes. The wife tuning out the husband strategy. I understand.
Yes.
It works well here.
So tonight, the plan is that since we had to end last week's show a little early, we will get to the super chats from last week during the super chat section. We're not going to start off with super chats, but we will get to the ones we missed from last week because we said we would do that, and then we will go to the super chats that are relevant to this week's stream. But we are going to try and keep this episode under 2 hours because we've been talking all day and we are exhausted. But with that out of the way, that was going to be the last thing. If you guys can try and get your super chats in by 7:30 tonight, that'll probably be the cutoff. We'll call it 7:45 at the absolute latest if it is, genuinely applicable to the conversation. But yeah, so that's how we're gonna do things. Please get super chats in by 7:30, 7:45 the absolute latest. If it's relevant, we'll read it. But to get started with today, because I am hot on this, Jimmy Corsetti is ruining everything.
So for those who don't know, like me before today, who is Jimmy Corsetti?
Yeah, so you guys who have been for those of you who have been watching the channel for a long time or have watched through our back catalog, you've probably seen some of the videos we've done on concepts like hidden history, lost civilizations, things like that. I was a big Graham Hancock fan for a while there until I started doing the same thing that happened with David Politis, which is where I was like, that's such an interesting theory. I wonder if there's anything to it. And then there wasn't. I will say this much. Graham Hancock makes a lot of points, and many of them are better than any that David Politis makes.
I'm just curious, Stephen, when did you discover Graham Hancock?
I would say that it was probably within the last couple of years, because I'll be honest, I was always purely into the history aspect. I never really looked into anything beyond, as an example, Ancient Aliens was huge over the course of, I would say, the 2010s, especially the early to mid 2010s. I never got into it, ever. I had never seen a single episode of Ancient Aliens until I actually had to watch it with my wife, because what was she? I think she was doing it for research on another topic that she was going to be doing for. And so we sat down and we watched an episode of it, and I was like, oh my God, the memes weren't exaggerating.
No.
Are you serious?
The show is exactly what it advertises itself to be.
So I'm bringing that up because I didn't get into any of the conspiracy side of what people look at with history until that point. Hell, I was never even really involved in the conspiracy side on what you would see in TikTok.
Yeah.
That was something that I was basically dragged into that kicking and screaming by you, Mini Minuteman, and Momlennial. And I only made, I think, 2 videos tops in that, and I did nothing else.
That was definitely mainly, I think, me and Milo handling that one. But for those who don't know, with Ancient Aliens, the reason we're talking about that, Graham Hancock, there's a few key points in the history of bad history. And they are, I would say, the late 50s to the early 70s when you had Zechariah Sitchin and Eric von Daniken and guys like that writing. And then there's another point in the early 2010s where you have Ancient Aliens. And then it happened in the early 2010s and mid 2010s, but it didn't kick off until the 2020s with COVID, with everybody having time to watch podcasts again. Graham Hancock. And Graham Hancock has been there the whole time, since the 90s. He wrote, I think, Fingerprints of the Gods back in the 1990s. And his premise was that a long time ago, approximately 12,000 years ago, there was an advanced ancient civilization on Earth that was wiped out by a cataclysmic event. And interestingly enough, I didn't learn this until I really dug into Graham's work. Originally, his position was that it was not meltwater pulse 1b, which we've talked about. That's when the sea levels rose a significant amount over the course of just about 100 years, about 25 meters over 100 years, and the period itself is about 1,000 years. So, or it's 25 meters in 100 years for, I think, a total of about 100 meters in 1,000 years. But that initial spot, that initial melting period is really aggressive. About 25 meters in 100 years.
So that's roughly like, what, 100 feet in that period?
Yeah, it's roughly 100 feet. And what you're looking at is that's, a couple inches a year. That's
extremely noticeable.
It's very
for
fast.
Anything that you would have on the coast. Like your house would be underwater in the span of a year in many cases.
Yeah, that's, and I might be mixing my numbers up a little bit here, but the point is, it's a lot of sea level rise in a short time. It might have even just been like 25 feet in 100 years, but even that.
Imagine if your Florida home was suddenly in 1 year was regularly Venice.
Yeah. So that's where it is now. Is Meltwater Pulse 1b did this. It was a rapid yet not immediate flooding event that basically drove humans back from the coasts, because where do most societies originate? Along rivers and along coastlines. That's where it is now. Back then, he said he thought it was the pole shift. He thought that it was the same kind of crustal displacement stuff that you get with Chan Thomas. But that's changed over time. So Graham Hancock, I think he's wrong about a lot of things. I think that he definitely needs to drop the idea that this ancient civilization was sailing around showing everybody how to do things. Especially because I'm pretty sure he's an atheist. So his just gets weird at a certain point. But his theory was, there was an ancient civilization that was wiped out by Cataclysm. Daniken and Sitchin were the ones who came up with this ancient civilization, getting everything from the Anunnaki and Nibiru, and there was the fingerprints of the gods thing. Like, we got all of our technology from extraterrestrials or from an ancient civilization that's now gone, that's disappeared, something along those lines.
Where it's like either esoteric, supernatural, or literally just aliens.
Exactly. But then, for some reason, in the late 2010s, into the COVID period, you get guys like Jimmy Corsetti, who, he's a younger guy, very charismatic, good speaker, but he starts sort of advancing Graham Hancock's stuff while taking it away from Graham Hancock. All of the grounded reality that Graham has carefully based his work upon, because Graham's goal in all of this, in my opinion, is to find a truth that he thinks is not even being hidden, but simply is missing.
Lost.
We don't know what happened. There was this time period where something happened and it changed our history, and we should find out what it is, right? My opinion, that's where Graham is. That's where Graham's been the whole time. I think he's an honest man. Jimmy Corsetti is not that kind of person.
And for those who don't know, who is this man?
Jimmy Corsetti goes by Bright Insight 6, I think, on Twitter. And this is not, coming out of nowhere. Jimmy has blocked me and unblocked me on Twitter like 5 times, mainly to talk shit. And every single time it goes poorly for him, because despite having way more followers than I do, none of them actually look at his shit and they don't talk to him. So of course he's, making fun of me, and I'm just retweeting it and getting more likes than he is, because that's how Twitter works. Twitter is a game.
For fun context, what is an example of something that he would get into a spat with you about?
I would have to go find stuff, but like the general gist here, Jimmy tweets something like the WEF is stopping everybody from doing excavations at Gobekli Tepe. And I would tweet something like, hey, Jimmy, I can understand why you'd think that, but I believe that there's some information you might not be privy to. And not stuff that I'm like, they have their reasons. I don't think the WEF has reasons for anything.
Is that the World Economic Forum?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that we were all clear on what he
the
was
World
referring
Economic
to.
Forum. They did, I think, take over oversight of the Gobekli Tepe site or something like that. But progress has been slow since long before that. This is, and for those who don't know, Gobekli Tepe is an 11,600-year-old, as far as we know, megalithic monumental structure in Turkey that was basically buried under a hilltop. Some people think that it was deliberately buried. Others have said that that's probably not the case. But the gist of it is, this has been a big piece of Graham Hancock's work ever since it came out in the 90s. And it's been a big piece of archaeology, but also pseudoarchaeology. The ancient alien stuff is, who built this? This is before agriculture. This is before known civilization by a wide margin. We don't have anything currently between Gobekli Tepe and Sumer. We have nothing. Like we have, the beginnings. We have little farming settlements here and there. Like we can start to see humanity and civilization taking shape.
But nothing for mass civilization where it's over like a 4,000-year gap where there's just not that significant of a thing.
We don't have anything like Gobekli Tepe up until Sumer.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Why? We don't know. There's a lot of questions to be asked. We were talking about this earlier on History Unhinged for an episode that's going to come out in a few weeks. There are valid questions here. There are things we need to know. The problem is that when the WEF comes in and has whatever influence they have, which I can't remember the details. All I remember is that Jimmy was wildly misrepresenting it. And I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt that he was just misunderstanding it. And I said, hey, I don't think that's what's going on. Progress on this site has been very slow. Archaeological funding is a difficult thing to come by. What we need to be doing is going to the people with money and saying, hey, here's why this is worthwhile. Here's why this is a good investment. What we need to be telling our audiences is you need to make noise about this, whether it's with your governments or with the billionaire class, whatever it is. Go in, make noise, explain why this is interesting, and show guys like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates, hey, if you fund this, you'll be responsible for whatever we find. We couldn't have found it without you. Your name will live on forever as the person, as like a Heinrich Schliemann kind of person who, probably did more harm than good, but at the very least, they got us there, right?
I'm trying to look up in the first place as to why it was taken over by the WEF and whatnot.
It was even totally taken over by the WEF.
So there is some controversy, though, surrounding the site, specifically with mismanagement in here. It's, according to the Istanbul Chronicle, from what I can see, the death of archaeologist Klaus Schmidt, who led the excavations on the 20th of July, 2014. The site's management became very controversial and faced allegations of mismanagement, as in discontinuing archaeological studies on purpose. Like they were going to do archaeological studies, and then something they just stopped, and they just purposely chose to not do anything.
Yeah.
This situation raised a profound question. How can this be explained to the Turkish public and the world? The allegations mean that a true part of history relating to the human race is kept a secret, indicating something with the power to change everything known about history. I'm realizing the more and more that I'm reading this from the Istanbul Chronicle that this is... The title of it is literally "From Truth Comes Liberation," which is quite not that sounds in the first place like it's from a conspiracy.
Yeah. I pulled this up, or like a communist paper.
Yeah, I pulled this up. I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. And I'm like, the language of this seems very charged. What is going on? And then I scroll up to the top and I see that. I'm like, this person has a fire in their eyes where they see the truth.
But that's the thing. Mismanaged? Absolutely. Underfunded? Positively. A conspiracy? No. There's no evidence of a conspiracy.
Well, and to your point about Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, it's not like that's a foreign concept. We had billionaires doing that 100 years ago to fund public programs. So it's not like it's something that's out of question.
Find the 2 million view video of him, the Corsetti, on Joe Rogan. I'm looking at this going, oh, literal title, Jimmy Corsetti calls Gobekli Tepe an ancient conspiracy theory.
Yep.
Like, all right.
And that's frustrating for a number of reasons. I want to know what's at Gobekli Tepe. It's going to be really hard to get people to take it seriously if every time they think about Gobekli Tepe, they end up thinking about conspiracy theories and aliens.
What also muddies the waters, because when an actual discovery is found, it's not going to live up to the like sensationalization that has been occurring because of the conspiracy nonsense.
Yep. And that's what I keep saying. That's why I keep coming back to it with Corsetti specifically. Graham Hancock, I really think, believes in what he's selling. I know Jimmy Corsetti knows he's full of shit. It's so obvious with everything he does, everything he says. It is a pure and simple grift. And people like him are ruining this entire field of study, this entire field of content creation. Because if a video goes out about archaeology, there are now only two groups of people who are going to watch it. There's going to be archaeologists who are curious about what's going on in the field. And then there's going to be the whack jobs who want their ancient alien stuff confirmed. Who's not going to watch it are the people who watch your channel and my channel. Well, our channel, who are curious about the unknown, about the unsolved, things like that, but they don't want to dive into conspiracy theory territory. They don't want to deal with that. They don't want to show up, they're used to hearing their crazy uncle talking about how the aliens built the pyramids. And then they see Gobekli Tepe, they see a guy like Jimmy Corsetti talk about it, and they're like, oh, okay, so it's just more of the same, more nonsense. And what that unfortunately does is the people who do want that kind of thing to remain mysterious and covered up, they get away with it. They get what they want. They don't have to do a conspiracy. The conspiracy is Jimmy Corsetti. The conspiracy is ancient aliens, these things that exist for two purposes. One, to entertain people, and then the other one seems to be to get people to not take any actual questions seriously. And that's the part that frustrates me. When it comes to conspiracy theories, the CIA, their favorite kind of person is the kind of person who sees a conspiracy in everything.
Yeah.
When it comes to the WEF, when it comes to the CCP, whoever you want to look at, the people who are actually behind the problems, their favorite thing is conspiracy theorists. They love it because then they don't have to do anything. I mean, how long? What did we both think about flat Earth before I looked into it?
Well, I mean, generally just nonsense, but
that it was basically that everybody thought that it was a CIA conspiracy to discredit people, to make things seem ridiculous by tying it to the flat Earth movement. The flat Earth movement was just this nexus point by which, if you could show that flat Earth ties into other conspiracies, well, then those conspiracies are just as silly, right?
Yeah, they're if they're crazy enough to believe this, they're crazy enough to believe anything. Therefore,
as it turns out, flat earthers really are just that stupid. But
they're also weirdly misguidedly Christian.
Yeah, they're like weird fundamentalists.
Yeah.
It's not even Christianity at the point they're doing it. It's some weird Gnostic nonsense that I can't really get into. Yeah, and this has been frustrating me because I've been seeing an example of it play out in real time all day with Flint Dibble and Michael Button, because I'm criticizing Jimmy Corsetti for kind of being the new iteration of this thing that goes onto podcasts and just spews bullshit like Ashton Forbes. Ben Davidson is the same kind of person. He has his show where he constantly talks about all the horrible things happening with the sun. The sun's going to blow up, or the sun is not going to blow up, but the electromagnetic field is weakening, and when it weakens completely, it'll flip, and when it flips, the Earth's crust will shift on itself, and then there will be a massive cataclysm. But you can survive the cataclysm if you pay $250 to become a subscriber to my ranch in Colorado. Like Jimmy Corsetti, I'll give him credit. It's not that blatant. It's not that obvious. But he goes on shows like Rogan, and he just repeats debunked nonsense over and over and over again, to the point where if you go and you try to have a conversation with somebody about Gobekli Tepe, and you say something like, well, yeah, in my opinion, Gobekli Tepe is Atlantis. I sound insane right now. I sound crazy because everybody's frame of reference is ancient aliens. Everybody's frame of reference is somebody claiming that a collapsed volcanic dome in Mauritania is the true location of Atlantis because it has some concentric circles.
I have an idea. What if...
I do want to clarify really quickly. When I say Gobekli Tepe is Atlantis, what I mean is in a general sense. Atlantis is some memory of a distant lost civilization that might not exist where Plato said it did. But at the very least, is there a memory of something? Is Gobekli Tepe Atlantis? When I say that, I don't mean Gobekli Tepe is the Atlantis Plato described. I mean it's the lost civilization we've all been looking for.
Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. What if, and this is my idea, what if you just go full throttle, Gobekli Tepe is Atlantis, and you just like, as insanely as you can, promote that idea until you get onto Rogan, or we get onto Rogan, whatever the combination is going to be. And then once there, you say, listen, Joe, I needed to get this conversation going because everyone is telling you lies.
Literally. It's incredible.
This isn't a live show. There's recordings of this right now, and you're just revealing the master plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but here
It'll still work.
that's the thing that drives me nuts about guys like Corsetti. It's not even that what they're claiming is all that ridiculous or all that extreme. It's that they take a little kernel of truth and they ruin everyone else's ability to use it because it makes them money, because they get paid to say these things. So I try to figure out, like, I worry that if I went back to school and tried to bring a master's thesis and say, hey, I want to go to Gobekli Tepe and I want to do some work with all of those different pictographs they have and try and see if these connect to anything, if this can tell us anything about that. And I worry that what I'm going to run into is my professors going, well, you know, everybody knows Gobekli Tepe isn't really anything. Like, you know, it's not really a thing. Like, what do you mean? You're crazy. You think that Atlantis was a thing? Like, I'm worried about...
It's a guilt by association in the academic circle that poisons the well from anyone to be able to draw from.
Yeah, the academia is never... Because right now, that's the only place to get archaeological funding. They're never going to send somebody to Gobekli Tepe if that person is asking the wrong questions, because Jimmy Corsetti has created a situation where the only questions anybody associates with Gobekli Tepe are the wrong ones.
Which sucks in this, because as of 2021, it says like 10% of the site has been excavated.
Yep.
10%. That's it.
That's a tragedy.
There's so much more that can be done.
And that's the thing. That's the conversation. We can talk about that. We can come out and we can say, hey, this is possibly the greatest archaeological find of all time. Let's look into it.
Yeah, at the very least, you could market it essentially as being like, hey, when we say this might be Atlantis, we're saying it in the same way that, like, we think we might have found Troy.
Yeah.
Like, it, not in the mystical sense, but in the factual, this is probably what the place they were talking about kind of thing.
Yep. So I think, I would love to live in a world where we can just kind of write people like this off, but over time they make it worse and worse and worse. And now Joe Rogan has just had a guy named Michael Button on who's pushing more of the same bullshit with Jimmy. Like, they know each other. They talk. I got blocked by Jimmy like a week ago again for saying that all of this had something to do with him. And it was a situation where I literally said about this Michael Button guy. He was talking about something, and it was a castle in Japan. Or I don't know what the proper Japanese term is. But
we're starting to get into your area here.
Okay, yeah, we are.
A fortification in Japan that the place had these huge stone walls.
Yeah.
That appeared to be megaliths that just were part of the wall.
Yeah.
And one guy was saying, I think Michael said something along the lines of like, God, what did he say exactly? How did this stone get here? And like, am I really, like, historians and archaeologists tell us that it was quarried like 200 kilometers away and transported. And I'm sitting there and I don't think he said that is what they would say. He said, and we're supposed to think that this was just quarried and transported 200 kilometers here, which is the criticism people make about the pyramids.
Mm-hmm, where they have definitively shown how they're transported, yeah.
But this one, I'm looking at it. It looks to me, it's the octopus stone, the octopus rock, something like that the thing is called. Looks to me like a big boulder that they went, yeah, this would be a useful piece of a fortification. Let's make it part of the wall. That's what I see. So I looked into it, and that's what I found. No evidence that it was quarried 200 kilometers away. No evidence that it was moved there. The current consensus is that it was probably already there, and they quarried rock off of the one face of it, smoothed it down, and left it like that.
I've been there.
You've been there?
I literally have been here. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, it's one of the several megaliths at the castle. It's just a massive, big-ass rock.
And what is the current historical opinion on how it got there?
It's a rock
So
that was and carved.
Carved? Yep.
Like, it's not a rock, it's a boulder. I just said.
Yeah. But anyway, that's the thing, is like we do this thing where they ask questions about things that don't need to have questions asked about them, like that, in order to make it seem like there are more of these mystical, strange things that we don't understand, when in reality, you look at that, and absent any reason to think it wasn't already there, you just assume it was probably already there. You might be able to ask questions about, is there a reason to think it wasn't? Is there a quarry somewhere where we're not sure where the rocks went? Then you can start asking questions. You don't just look at something, go, I'm not going to do any research into this whatsoever, and then start asking questions that have probably already been answered. But some other guy's like, oh, it was probably cast there. And I'm like, okay, I'm just not even going to deal with you. Why would they do that?
It just sounds like people who essentially are looking out from the outside in, not members of the academic circles that know anything that's going on here.
But that's the problem, is then they look at it and they go, oh, you guys in your ivory tower who are never on the ground doing anything, who are all trying to just keep your cushy jobs, you won't challenge the system. And it's like,
literally, from a lot of the stones in here in the first place, I was curious about this. Like, oh, well, what's going on with this? It's not just that it's like, oh, there's a big rock that was there. There was an even bigger ass rock that was there, and they severed it into multiple pieces, slabs, which would then be used to easily just put up the wall. So rather than break it down into a bunch of much smaller little rocks, they just took a boulder and they cut it into multiple pieces and then used that as a basis.
Yep. Like,
and mind you, we're not talking about something in, like, when people talk about conspiracy from different stuff for fortifications, or I say fortifications, for like megalithic structures, and they're like, oh man, this thing is 4, 5, 6, 7,000 years old. How did they do this back then? This was literally the 1500s. This is 500 years ago. This is Osaka Castle. It is one of the, like, pristine castles of Japan that was constructed specifically in order to be able to unite the daimyo behind the shogunate.
Yep.
Like that's the whole point.
Oh, that's the funniest part, is when they're like, this mysterious thing is here. I wonder how the ancients could have built it. And it's like 300 years old. Like, because it wasn't the ancients, we had steam engines. Like, we were there. We were figuring that stuff out.
Yeah. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a warlord who successfully unified Japan. He was the second guy, because it was Oda Nobunaga, then Toyotomi Hideyoshi, and then followed by that, his successor, Tokugawa Ieyasu, who actually took over things. So he started the construction of Osaka Castle in 1583, so actually less than 500 years ago.
Just to be clear, this is 70 years, 60 years, 70 years after the Spanish have colonized Mexico.
Yep. So at the time of this reconstruction, Japanese castle building technology had entered a period of maturity. So the stone walls of Osaka Castle were built using the best of technologies. We can observe a high degree of technical perfection, for example, the near complete absence of gaps between the stones in the wall. By order of the shogunate, the task for constructing the stone walls were shared among the 64 daimyo, the feudal lords, so that each one would basically compete to, like, put stones in the castle wall, and they would carve their own little seals into the stone for, like, hey, look at this one. I did this one. Look how perfect it is. Because that's how the Japanese government got the lords to compete with one another to do this shit. And so, in all, about 1 million granite stones were used in the walls, which were transported from nearby Mount Roko and islands in the Seto Inland Sea, and from quarries on the island of Kyushu, some 420 kilometers from Osaka.
See, so that's how it happens. That is how, and I know he didn't know that, because he said 200, and when
I was going to say, he clearly didn't even look at Wikipedia.
And when I asked about it, he had no response for where that came from. But that's how it happens. Some of the stones came from a quarry somewhere else and were transported there.
Others were from the mountain that were right here.
Some of them might have already been right there, like the giant boulder.
Just beyond the main entrance, that is the Ottoman Gate, are 3 eye-catching giant stones, each around 5 meters high and between 8 to 11 meters wide. The stones were processed into the shape of sheet-like slabs to serve as vertical barriers at the foot of the stone walls. These 3 rocks are 3 slices of a single giant boulder.
Yep.
So they had a giant boulder that was there, and they're like, hey, let's use this thing. Why not? And they cut it into 3 pieces and used it.
Yep. But if you just say that, then you can't pretend it was aliens. You can't pretend there was a lost civilization with levitation technology that built out of stone instead of, metal for some reason. That's the question I always have. All these ancient civilizations that, had this strange technology that allowed them to build these impressive stone structures. How can we do it with modern architecture? We can't figure it out. Yeah, so they figured out how to levitate things and use lasers to weld stone, but at no point did they figure out metallurgy.
If there's actually a claim regarding the castle wall, it just pisses me off, is this is quite literally 3,000 years past the pyramids.
Oh, I know. It's...
Also, what about, medicine?
Yeah. There's
they built a lot of structures, but penicillin was off the table.
Yeah, of course, man. Well, I mean, and that's the thing. That's why it's gone past Meltwater Pulse 1b. That's why it's left Graham Hancock in the dust, is because Meltwater Pulse 1b doesn't explain how a civilization that advanced disappeared. The Earth's crust rotating when the poles shift, on the other hand, does. And you know what's a great way to consistently make money, guys? It's to tell stupid people that they're going to die if they don't learn the things you're telling them.
Yeah, it's true.
It's look, hey, you people who don't know anything about anything, I know things you don't know. Come listen to me. It's a pure grift.
It's the modern version of a snake oil salesman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but instead of snake oil, they're selling really bad ideas. And I've been trying all week to be nice to Michael. I wanted to have him on this episode of the show. I wanted to talk with him. I offered. And what did I get? Silence. He stopped responding to me after the one time that he did respond, where I told him something he apparently didn't know. So that just, it makes me so angry. People work so hard. I'm not even talking about us. People go and they get their bachelor's and their master's and they do field work and they get out there and they see these things. They find them themselves, and then some guy who has a YouTube channel runs his mouth about it without actually even bothering to read the entire paper. And that's what happened with the million-year-old skull.
Oh, yeah.
Guy.
You want to run over that?
Yeah, so this week, literally today and yesterday, as we are sitting here recording the show, Michael Button is having an argument with Flint Dibble. Both of these people have been on Rogan. Unfortunately, one of them is kind of a meek and, I'll admit, kind of a whiny professional. And the other one is a bombastic, young, charismatic guy, Michael Button.
Were they on at the same time?
No. Okay. And Michael Button reads this article, reads a BBC article. And here's the thing that I think is very interesting. This told me everything I needed to know about the guy. He read a BBC article about an article published in Science. Science is a journal. BBC is not a journal. For me, if I see something that pertains to my work, I see it pop up, a BBC or a ABC, whatever article that says, huge discovery. I go and I look at the article and I say, all right, it was in a study, a peer-reviewed study. That's good. Where was the study published? Okay, I'm going to go read the study. I read the article, but if somebody asks me about the article, if somebody asks me about the topic, I'm going to cite the journal.
Yeah, the study, not just what was being written about it.
Michael was citing the BBC article, and he was citing a part where the BBC article paraphrased something the study reported. So he paraphrased a paraphrase of an already dubious study because, guys, guess what? When a million-year-old skull is found in China, the Chinese are going to do everything they can to try and link that to Homo sapiens because they have been dying for 40 years now to convince everybody that humanity originated in China. So you can't trust anything coming out of China when it comes to anthropology right now, even if there's one singular American name attached to it. And that's what happened here. There's a study on a skull found in China. The skull is about 1 million years old. It appears to be a member of the H. longi clade, which is related to Homo sapiens and Homo neanderthalensis, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure is Homo sapiens neanderthalensis, as a full term. I'm pretty sure we're Homo sapiens sapiens. So Homo sapiens neanderthalensis and Homo sapiens sapiens are more closely related than longi is, from what I understand. What the study found was that there is a 1 million year old skull that appears to belong to an ancestor of a group that is tangentially related to us. What Michael Button says, we have a 1 million year old human skull.
A large brain human skull.
Yeah. And then he goes and so we've already misrepresented the findings of the study here, right? It's not a human skull. It is a large-brained hominid, which includes Homo habilis. That goes back way further. It, from what I can tell, is not a descendant of Heidelbergensis as far as they're concerned, which separates it from us and Neanderthals. And it's also not even a Denisovan. It's from the same genetic line as Denisovans. It's an earlier ancestor of a Denisovan. So this skull, what it tells us is that a distinct Denisovan ancestor existed a little bit earlier than we thought it did.
Which is still an interesting discovery.
It is an interesting discovery, indeed.
It does not mean what he is saying.
Yes, what that means is that there was an ancestor to a sister species of ours earlier than we thought. It does not mean, even though the guy in the study did say this, we both looked at it. We were like, that is a completely ridiculous conclusion to draw from this. The guy running the study, at least the American guy on the study, said that if H. longi was walking around back then Homo sapiens and Homo neanderthalensis probably were too. That is not a conclusion you can draw.
No, it's not that it probably was. It could be. It could be, but there's nothing that actually ties it to that.
Yep. There's no evidence that literally what you're saying is, since these things are all relatively similar, since these groups are all relatively similar, they probably existed all at the same time. And I mean, you can just go back and look at dinosaur fossils and know that's not true. But you can look at something like dog breeds. It's very similar at that point. We're talking about a common ancestor that is as similar, like we are as similar to our common ancestor with Neanderthals as probably like an English bulldog and an American bulldog. Like different structurally, but we can interbreed. We can produce fertile offspring. We probably could have communicated. It seems like we did. We have very similar things that we're capable of doing. The reason that we beat out Neanderthals is still up for debate. We don't really know. We think that it was a mix of interbreeding and outcompeting for some reason or another that we don't currently understand. We're working on that. That is what the anthropology community is trying to figure out, is why did we beat out Neanderthals? We don't know. But to say that because this one species of humans was around earlier, maybe, that means that these other two species must also have been. Well, the oldest Heidelbergensis skeleton we have, I think, is 300 or 700,000 years old. So doesn't that, based on the available evidence, suggest that Heidelbergensis and Longi diverged?
That there was a later split. It doesn't necessarily mean it happened around the same time. Hell, even if, again, it moves back the time frame by a couple 100,000 years, that in and of itself would be impressive. We just have no way to actually determine if that is the case.
Yep.
It's like saying you found evidence of a tree getting struck by lightning in a field, and then you say, this must mean that two other trees existed in this field that also got struck by lightning in the same storm.
Yep. And you can look at, I like using dog breeds for this analysis, because it's probably one of the most visible, one of the ones people are going to be the most familiar with. There's a dog breed type called a Spitz type. There's a lot of Spitz dogs out there. A lot, basically any dog that's, triangular face, pointy ears is probably a Spitz. Especially if it's from Northern Europe or Northern Asia. So we have the German Spitz, right? That's a dog that's a very common, very popular dog breed around the 1700s. The Amish come to America and they bring German Spitz dogs with them. The British go to, or well, actually, a bunch of Germans go to rule England and they bring the German Spitz with them. Over the course of the next several hundred years, two dog breeds diverge from this, the Pomeranian and the American Eskimo dog. They didn't originate at the same time. They didn't reach their modern sizes at the same time. And there are German Spitzes in Germany still that are still German Spitzes that never changed, that they are still almost the same breed standard as they were 200, 300 years ago. And if you took another German Spitz type, if you took a German Spitz out of Germany, as it is today, you could find one that has its lineage going back as far as possible, and you brought it to Africa and you started breeding it for, sniffing out where hyenas are chilling, it would turn into a different dog and be its own dog breed. But it would still have that common ancestor. So there's no reason to assume, if we can do that with dogs, that would not have happened with humans, that you wouldn't have a split later down the line. There's so many things that you can look at with genetics, whether it's language, religion, actual genetics, where you can see that divergences happen at different times. It's not that, the second H. longi started to exist, Homo erectus ceased to exist.
Well, also, based on the description that you just provided, it's more likely it didn't happen at the same time, because usually, especially in a non-breeding scenario like with dogs, the change is a result of something that changed in the environment.
Yep.
So if you're going to have a change to something that is more fit for that environment, you're usually not going to have three different versions of that fitness for that environment.
Well, and that's the thing, is the reason that H. longi is over in Asia, and the reason it's identifiable as H. longi, is because it's over in Asia. Like, if all of these groups if all of the hominids went to the same place, they wouldn't have diverged.
Nope.
Neanderthals are different because they went to Europe. Like, some of the differences occur in Africa, but then they move out of Africa and they get even more different. The longi go east, they go into Asia, they start to look kind of different. Homo sapiens spends a little bit more time cooking here in Africa, and then it goes out to Europe and Asia. So, again, there is zero connective tissue between we found 1 million-year-old H. longi and Homo sapiens must have existed earlier, or even likely existed earlier. Is it possible? Yes. Is it reasonable to take H. longi existing 1 million years ago and start asking the question, well, if large-brained hominids existed 1 million years ago, something we already knew to be true, why did culture only develop 12,000 years ago?
Which, mind you, from everything that has been said so far, that is the specific tweet that he is drawing from.
Yes.
Is that the tweet was, and I'm paraphrasing now when I say this, I don't have it directly in front of me, that if these large brain humans existed
And
a
had
million years
culture a million
and
years
had
ago.
culture 1 million years ago, what happened that we didn't have any until apparently 12,000 years ago?
And that's where I turn around and I tell Flint Dibble to shut the hell up, because he doesn't know how to talk to these people. So he says something and they just take advantage of what he says. It's good archaeologist, not a good archaeological communicator. Because what he said was, when Michael said, oh, we've been around for 1 million years, so, why did culture develop only 12,000 years ago? What he said is, no, Flint goes, no, we knew that hominids had culture 1 million years ago. This isn't weird. Stop asking stupid questions. And Michael goes, oh, so you admit hominids had culture 1 million years ago. What did Flint mean by culture? He meant care for the dead, maybe? Who knows?
He meant culture, not civilization.
Yeah, and what Flint's talking about, the proper terminology, Michael is talking about civilization, which is, again, the reason he picked 12,000 BC is Gobekli Tepe. Or 12,000 years ago is Gobekli Tepe. Gobekli Tepe was constructed, as far as we know, around 11,600 BC. So we just take these massive leaps, and they ruin everything. And what I pointed out earlier, what I pointed out on our show that we do together as we were chatting about it, is one of the most recent discoveries with Gobekli Tepe is very interesting to me. It is a humanoid statue that was found inside of a wall, as part of a wall at Gobekli Tepe. there is some dispute over whether or not it matches with the geologic profile, with the tool making profile of the wall itself. There are now questions about some of the other structures. Were the pillars there first and the walls are later additions? Were the walls there first and the pillars are later additions? People are asking these questions now because we don't understand how this thing got here. But what I said to you guys is, regardless of the situation with that statue, there are currently two theories. One is that it was basically put there as a building block like the Rosetta Stone was, and that it was so obscure to the people who put it there because it was so old that they had no idea what it was for. It had no significance to them. It was just being used as a rock to put into a wall. Then the other theory is that this was of religious significance or of ritual significance, and they put it there as a sacrifice or as a way to maybe imbue the wall with the power of whatever god that represented. But no matter what the case is, the way you approach this with archaeologists, with rich people who might fund archaeology, is you say, hey, we have this weird discovery. There's two main theories about it. One of them is that this was so obscure to the people who placed it there that it must have been hundreds, if not thousands of years old by that point.
I'm just pulling up the stat, like, to actually see what this thing even looks like in the first place. I mean, it's most certainly humanoid.
Yeah,
in the way that you can
definitely
actually see that. Like, it's got the arms, it looks like it's either wearing a hat or a helmet or some kind of hair.
Which there's a lot of questions to be asked if it is a helmet, obviously. Because if it's a helmet, that brings the history of warfare back.
Yeah, that implies metallurgy of some kind.
Yeah.
And the reason I even say that in the first place is because with the way that it's even structured, it's perfectly cylindrical.
Yeah.
It seems. And then on top of that, instead of sideburns that go down, which I've never really seen someone make a statue with sideburns, that seems odd. It's just more normally hair and then it's cut off. This actually comes down with two indentions that go down like this, which looks like it would be for cheek or face guards that would go down the side. That looks like a helmet to me.
Yeah. So that's the thing is this even just looking at the thing, let's assume that it was placed there because it was obscure. It's so old that that means there's multiple cultures present, basically. Or at the very least, there's one singular culture that was there so long that items from the early period are unrecognizable during the late period, that implies a very long period of time. If that's the case, we need to start rethinking this. How old is this place really? Or is that statue a lot younger than we thought it was, the completed structure? Or alternatively, the other theory, you can say, hey, we found this. We believe it's of ritual significance, which means that we should find it at the other Tepe sites. Yes, there's more of them. And if it is, we have our first clue as to what religion looked like 12,000 years ago. Why is this here? What was the purpose? Is there anything on these pillars now that we can look at, any of the pictographs, and connect it to and say, oh, these things must have something to do with each other? How far back can we push our understanding of human spirituality? Those are two very interesting, fascinating questions you can ask about this place. But instead, I'm forced to sit here explaining that no, every time the magnetic poles shift, it doesn't wipe out civilization. Because that's where the argument is going.
That's what it does.
That's where Jimmy Corsetti and Ben Davidson and Michael Button, that's where they're taking it, is that there are these huge cataclysmic events that the only way that you can really understand how to survive is by watching my YouTube channel or is by subscribing to my Colorado ranch. Stupid things that just have no place in the discussion, and yet they dominate it. So I'm not even saying, look, I'm not saying that there's...
It's borderline doomsday cultish.
It is. And I'm not saying that, something needs to be done about it. It's not like we can punish these people legally for, drawing horrific conclusions from the evidence. That's not a crime. Being an idiot is not a crime.
No.
Being a grifter arguably should be, but then you can just defend being a grifter by saying that you're an idiot. And then you go and you say, well, their definition of idiot, my definition of idiot, who knows? Anyway, you guys are all dumber than me. So I don't know. I'm so frustrated having to watch it happen over and over and over and over again.
Well, the least we can do is what exactly we're doing right now is ensure that there is an informed audience. So that way, when you encounter something like this, you can be aware of what is actually being communicated to you, i.e. a grift.
Yeah. And that's the other thing that I've noticed too, is they won't debate people. And I think there's a reason for that. They will debate people on Twitter, little Twitter spats, because what you can do then is it's all short form. It's all, one quick point. You can't grill them. You can't ask them further questions. You can't ask them to keep backing up what they're doing on the fly, so they keep having an opportunity when you beat them to go and find some non sequitur to throw into the conversation so that you have to then explain how that works. Meanwhile, if you're having a discussion in person, or at the very least, face-to-face online, live, I can sit there and I can drill down. I can ask the questions. I can force you to explain where you're drawing these conclusions from, and I can ask you why you think this conclusion isn't more likely than that conclusion. I guarantee if Michael Button sat down, even with me, I am not an anthropologist. Neither are you. Neither are you. If he sat down at this table, he would not be able to explain why his conclusion makes sense. He's just going to go ahead and do exactly what he did on Twitter, which is appeal to authority, and then use non sequiturs to drive off the people who were asking questions. That's what he's going to do. That's what Jimmy's going to do. That's what all of them are going to do, except Graham Hancock, which is why I think he's the one who you can look at and say that's a man who has some integrity. He genuinely believes in this kind of thing. I might disagree with him, but at least I respect him.
I will say this. I will say, at the very least, on even the Joe Rogan episode itself, the majority of the comments that I am seeing are not kind to him.
Yeah, that's good.
There are some that are the classic, like, oh man, this could change everything, et cetera, But no, the majority of them seem to either be ragging on him for never getting to the point and talking around in circles, or mocking him for saying, and here's where it gets wild. Oh, but here's where it gets crazy. And now this is where it gets insane. And then just repeating that over and over and over again. And then others are just mocking him for his misunderstanding of basic things for Islam. Like, when I say that, what I mean is that there are aspects here within Islam that is like, it is a Abrahamic faith.
Yeah.
That there are core parts of it that are, I'm going to use the term universal, that are shared between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, such as the understanding that it's like, yes, Noah, like that's a story that appears in all three. The story of Moses appears in all three, all these different things. And
with some slight variations.
Yeah, with slight variations. But the idea in this, when saying that, that Turkey is trying to hide this history because it exposes something that is not Islamic, is absolute bullshit.
Yeah, I don't even know what,
because I will say this there. From a geopolitical side of things, Turkey is largely Muslim. Yes, overwhelming so majority, but it is a secular state. It is in fact the only Islamic state in the entirety of the world that is more secular than it is Islamic.
Yeah,
like that. Like that's the thing. It has a very tenuous balance between the two, and a core tenet of the Republic of Turkey is secularism.
Yeah,
that is a part of the founding ideology of Kemalism, of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Mm-hmm. And if you want to say anyone in Turkey is worshipped, it is Mustafa. Holy shit. Gabby's nodding her head right now. You go to Turkey right now, there are literally giant portraits of this guy everywhere in public. Like, you just walk into a public square, you look up, what do you see? Giant red Turkish flag, portrait of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. Mm-hmm. Everywhere. And secularism was one of the key things that was pushed within Turkey in order to be able to separate it from the more religiously fundamentalist and then backward states that you would see across the Middle East and Central Asia. He pushed this as part of a modernization effort. So there are, every single time varying different Islamist forces try to take power within Turkey, you know what the response of the government is?
What?
Boot. Crashing down. They do not allow this. The idea that Turkey would want to stop something that potentially challenges their understanding of history is the only thing that Turkey would ever do is if somehow it was discovered that a Kurdish super civilization lived there and now they're trying to stamp it out. But besides that, they're not going to do anything. That's an insane take.
Here's another one that I had out with Michael Button, because where I again responded, it's about Derinkuyu. Familiar with Derinkuyu?
Yeah, I am.
For the audience's sake.
For the audience, Derinkuyu is essentially an underground city that goes around 80 to 90 meters underground in Cappadocia.
Where exactly is Cappadocia?
Cappadocia is also in Turkey.
Okay.
And I mean, it looks like this for you, but we've done
so it's vertical.
Yeah, we've done a video on it. We have a video on Derinkuyu.
Several years ago, yeah. But
old.
Yeah.
It's an old video on Derinkuyu. But if you need some explanation of what it is, also there's a lot of great videos on Derinkuyu out there. It's not a mystery. The mystery is we're not necessarily sure who the first people to start building these tunnels were.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how this works with these guys like Michael Button. No one knows who built Derinkuyu in Turkey. No one knows when it was built. No one knows how. A vast ancient underground city that burrows 85 meters below the surface with 18 levels of tunnels. That's and the grammar here is horrible. That's construction appears in 0 records. How old is it? So first of all, wild overestimation of how many things have been documented throughout history. Like most things are not documented. Most of history is completely undocumented, including things that happened in the last 5,000 years while we were documenting things.
Oh, yeah. That's actually one of the big things of history is trying to discover what was, not actually written down. So now they have to figure it out through alternative means.
Well, part of the reason that Derinkuyu is such a mystery is because we didn't even know about the Hittites until the 1800s. They're in the Bible.
Oh, no, that
was the only place they were, though. That was the only place we had Hittites, was the Jewish text of the Old Testament mentions Hittites. We didn't know what they were, then we found them. Derinkuyu was found, I think, in the 1960s. Nobody knows where it came from because nobody's lived there in a while. But here's the funny thing. You know who the last person to live in Derinkuyu and the other tunnels like it were? Greeks. Take a guess when.
Over the course of the Byzantines?
Oh, it gets later than that. Take a guess. Why might Greeks hide in tunnels in Turkey?
Oh my God, no, it's not because during the massacres.
Yep. So the last time they were occupied was the early 1900s by ethnic Greeks living in Turkey trying to escape a genocide against Greeks, because Turkey has tried to commit genocides against like 3 different groups of people now. They succeeded at least one. There's no Armenians in Turkey now. They just did a giant population trade with the Greeks where they literally traded millions of people between the two countries.
They were both genociding each other, and I think it was about, what was it, just over 2 million? I think like was in terms of a population transfer for what
they
occurred.
Literally just were like, okay, we can't contain the violence in Greece or in Turkey, so we're just going to take all the Greeks in Turkey and all the Turks in Greece, or at least the people who ethnically identify as such, and we're going to swatch. We're swapping them.
2 weeks ago, I was in a Greek village in Turkey that is now fully Turkish, but it's like, it was literally, yes, we were told for a guide, this was a Greek village.
Yep.
There are no more Greeks here.
And they won't tell you why there are no more Greeks.
Oh, no.
But
He explained.
Oh, he did?
He explained.
Good on him.
Yeah, and talked about for the population. And now, of course, a lot of the stuff, considering it's a standard tour, was just skipped over in here. But I made sure to fill in a number of the details for people that desired this.
Of course.
But when he got drunk, he would go off about the stuff too. But there's certain things that you can't really say when representing your company.
That's fair. I love the Trova trip, people. Speaking of which, we have a trip to Colorado next year that we have to fill, and we also have a trip to Yosemite that is nearly full. So go to, if you want to, I don't have the link on me right now. I should have put it in the description. But if you guys head over to Trova Trip's website, that is TROVATRIP.com, and you search Aiden Mattis or the Lore Lodge, we should show up and you can book for those trips.
I am also leading a trip to Greece as well as Thailand here. I'm actually going to be gone in literally a month to Japan doing that. So I'm going to be in Japan for a month. So if you want to join me on a future trip as well, you can.
What you doing?
I am not on those trips yet.
It won't be on there yet because they're not, only one's confirmed and it's in June.
Got it.
Anyway, ours are in June of next year. So, oh God, where'd it go? Oh no, there it is. Back to the Derinkuyu thing, and then we'll head over to super chats. His basic question, this whole how old is it thing. No one knows who built Derinkuyu in Turkey. Let's go point by point through this. Ready? No one knows who built Derinkuyu in Turkey. Actually, no, here's what I'm going to do. No one knows when it was built. No one knows how. A vast ancient underground city that burrows 85 meters below the surface with 18 levels of tunnels. That construction appears in 0 records. How old is it? And I replied very, very cordially. I said, we have a pretty good idea of who built it. Again, happy to have you on to chat about some of this stuff. And when I say we have a pretty good idea, I mean, years ago, I made a video on this. We've known a long time. Some guy asked Grok to explain it, and it was really funny because Grok kept explaining it, and he kept asking Grok to explain it because he didn't understand the idea that, like, we know at least the Phrygians built it, but it might have also had some Hittite involvement. That's what Grok was trying to tell him, but he couldn't get that. But that's what I would have said, because no one knows who built Derinkuyu. Well, we know for a fact the Phrygians were involved. We know for a fact that there are Byzantine tunnels. We know that there are Turkish tunnels. We know that it goes back basically at least as far as 800 BC, because that's when the Phrygians were there. And we have Phrygian artifacts, recognizable artifacts from Phrygia. The question isn't, who are the mysterious builders of Derinkuyu? The question is, was it the Phrygians or was it the Hittites that dug the first tunnel?
Yeah, it was who built what. That's what needs to be determined. Like, unless you find artifacts in one, you're not going to really know necessarily.
So who built Derinkuyu? The question we're asking as historians and archaeologists is, was it the Hittites or the Phrygians? Because there's no evidence that it's older than the Hittites. The question is really, is it older than the Phrygians? And we don't know, because there are Hittite artifacts, but are they Hittite artifacts that were brought there?
I forget. In terms of digging for like where stuff was done, this was one of the ones that was done into like not calcified, but like hardened volcanic ash.
I think so, yeah.
Because I was literally in this.
Yes,
you've been in one. I wasn't in that, but I was in the underground city of Göreme.
Yep.
There in Turkey, which the whole purpose behind this, I kid you not, for people want to know, how would it possibly be built?
It's very easy.
If you walked up to this and you took your fingernails and you scratch at the rock, it will dig into it slightly. Meaning with basic stone tools, I could do this with just by picking up a little rock off the ground, and I could just hit the wall and it will start chipping away through it.
Yeah.
It is that soft. Now, but because of that and the way that it naturally would erode over time, it would already have indentations from caves that would be created that could just be expanded, because all of it is volcanic ash that would, again, calcify is not the right term necessarily, but it would mineralize. That's what it would be.
Yeah, I guess.
So it would mineralize because it was mixed with all kinds of different things, and it would become a kind of rock that was a very, very soft rock that you could just chip away through.
Yep.
Stupidly easy. We went into one city that was made out of the same substance that was estimated to house around 60,000 people.
Exactly. And that's the thing. When you look at this, that's what I was about to get to. That's the no one knows how question. It's not that we don't know how. It's that how was really simple. It was soft material. You didn't even need an iron or bronze shovel to get through it. You could take a big rock and shovel.
You could even use a stick, even wood. If your fingernails could do it, you could use a stick.
They could have used wooden shovels for this. That is how soft this rock is. No one knows how? Yes, we do. We might not know precisely the exact method they used, but we know it was possible with the materials they had available. Then we have no one knows when. It's not that no one knows when, it's that we know that certain parts of it are as recent as the 1920s. We know other parts are as recent as the Byzantine period and the Turkish period. And we know that some parts are at least as old as the Phrygian period.
Yep.
The thing is, the parts that are potentially older than the Phrygian period aren't 85 meters down. They're not even 10 meters down. They're the first tunnels. We find the Phrygian stuff within the first, I think, 15 meters. First 10 to 15 meters of this, probably sooner, because there's also Phrygian material in the top layer. The problem is that we know the Phrygians dug down here. We don't know if they're the ones who dug the first tunnel. If they're the ones who dug the first tunnel, it was the Phrygians. If it's not them, it was the Hittites. There's really no other people on the table, because you don't need to really ask the question. It's not that deep. Literally. It is literally not that deep. If we were finding Phrygian artifacts 800 or 85 meters down, okay, let's ask some questions about how the hell they got that deep. If we're finding Hittite artifacts 50 meters down, let's ask the question. But as it stands right now, we know Derinkuyu was built in stages over a course of 3,000 years. We know that much. We don't know who dug the first tunnel. But the first tunnel's not the impressive part. The impressive part, the part you want to ask questions about, is the part that's 85 meters down.
Yeah.
Which is the newest part. So no, it's not a question. Why is there no record of its construction? Because it wasn't constructed all at one time. People lived in a village. You know what it probably started as? People probably dug cellars to keep things preserved. They probably weren't even originally tunnels that people lived in. They probably started by digging them as cellars to keep meat and vegetables and things cool. And then, who knows, maybe a raiding party came through and they hid in their little root cellars and went, wait a minute, we can expand these. Or maybe they were storing stuff in what they thought to be caves, and then they just expanded the caves. It could be that the first tunnels weren't built. The first tunnels could have been caves.
Yeah, literally natural erosion. That was the case with a bunch of the stuff for the underground city, was they actually had the waterways that show it.
Yep. So who built it? Nature, potentially. And if not nature, could have been animals burrowing. It could have been that people recognized, maybe it was that there was a period where winters were especially harsh in the region, so people dug underground homes in order to stay out of the cold weather. There are so many possibilities, but instead, we're telling people that the whole thing was built at once. I don't think for a second that Michael Button doesn't know that. He says he has a BA in ancient history, which, first of all, I will be the first one to say this. I have never heard of that as a degree. I don't know what that means. Most people don't get a bachelor's in ancient history. That is an absurdly broad period. You get and look, again, I don't know where we went to college. Maybe it's just that the schools I looked at for my master's programs, the schools I looked at for my bachelor's program, maybe they just didn't have this degree. But I have never met anybody with a BA in ancient history in my life. What I have met are people with classics degrees. I've met people with degrees in Neolithic anthropology. I've met people with degrees in history. I've met people with degrees in ancient Mediterranean history. Never met somebody who was just ancient history. Because at that point, at a certain,
that is incredibly broad, and how do you even begin to...
Yeah, it's going to be Mesopotamian studies, or it's going to be Mediterranean studies, or it's going to be Paleo-European studies. But at that point, you're getting into anthropology. So I don't even know what a BA in ancient history means or looks like. But if somebody's got one, I would be genuinely shocked if they weren't aware of both what Derinkuyu is and how it came to be.
Yep. With that, honestly, might want to jump into the...
Yeah, definitely go into Super Chats now.
Cool.
Remember, if you sent one in last week, we're going to get to it right now. And then we will get through everything that came in before 7:30.
Yeah.
Because we made the announcement early in the show. Anything after 7:30, we probably won't be able to get to. If it goes really quick, cool, great. But that's the hard cutoff of 8:45.
We're going to need food. We've been recording literally all day.
So hard cutoff for tonight's show of 8:45 p.m.
Yep.
We'll get through as much as we can, though.
So we're going to do my best to make sure that we're not repeating anything.
The good news is, too, last week was also about lost civilizations in a way. So.
Yeah. I think John B150, I don't remember if we covered this, but he was asking, can you cover the murder of Jennifer Dulos? Very strange case in Avon, Connecticut.
I can look into it.
Cool. Also, Duo Black Rose says, to all LA Rams fans, get wrecked. And then, again, not sure if we covered this one from Ella Sasquatch.
I like the little donation. It's just a donation just to get something said provocative online. Yeah.
Yes.
Have it read aloud. I love it.
Oh, we did forget. Go Birds! Oh, take it. Get got. Wasn't pretty.
No. We hope they clean up the react a little bit.
Be great if we didn't just have Brian Johnson 2.0, but that's not the point.
It'd be great if we did something other than attempting to run Saquon up the middle every single play.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving swiftly along, Ilo the Sasquatch with something I can't see the rest of your name said, could you guys go over the Jackson Whites of Malwa, New Jersey? It's less mystery and more history.
And try.
And probably close enough for you guys to do on-location filming.
That might be cool. Yeah, I can look into it.
Did that one...
I don't recall there being that many that we...
Yeah, some of them are just kind of irrelevant, so I don't know if we want to...
If it's not relevant, then just... don't.
Yeah. Well, most of them were irrelevant. So
that was the other thing, is like a lot of you guys sent in super chats that didn't have anything to do with the conversation. Anything?
That's the thing, is a lot of these are just kind of not relevant to what we were talking about. Did that one, did that one, did that one, did that one. Didn't do that one, but don't need to.
I hear the Jeopardy soundtrack just plays in the background while all this is going on.
Well, this is the problem that we've been having, is we want to get to as many of the super chats as we possibly can, but sometimes they get into the territory of not having anything to do with the conversation.
Yeah, we pretty much did everything that was relevant, so.
Did we?
Pretty much, yeah. Most of the other ones were just kind of like shout outs and other things. So
we appreciate those. It's just we might not get to be able to read those every show.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
Okay, so this one is interesting from Mr. Dilo saying, and I say that by only
For this episode now, or is it
this episode, and it's also
we can go back to some of the shout outs from the other one if we get through all of the ones from this episode.
Yes, I find it unlikely if we're stopping at 8:45. Anyway, he says, what if there was a secret 11th commandment and it was just chill, my guy? But Moses thought that was meant for him, so he didn't write it down.
Oh no, that was the burning bush.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry, I'm proud of that one. I am proud of that one for that. Yeah.
Oh boy. All right, what's next?
Okay, this one I have to. Don McRoaches says, good afternoon, boys. Mr. Thornbury, I started working on an old Ford recently, 1988 F350 with the 460, not diesel, but still cool, 85K-ish on the dash. Awesome. Love to hear it. The 460s are beasts. Take care of it. Make sure, if you're not a mechanic, make sure that someone looks at it that you trust, because unlike the diesels, they don't run forever. And especially if they weren't taken care of previously. I learned firsthand experience that despite those engines being extremely well made from the factory, previous owners are extremely untrustworthy. So I learned the lesson so you don't have to. Anyway, moving forward. Shepard says to drink your bone juice. Vampire from Pluto.
Are you guys beginning to understand why we said a lot of them weren't really relevant?
Yeah. Tyler Dalrymple says he's playing Crusader Kings 3 for 22 consecutive hours now, rebuilding Rome.
Okay.
Most autistic thing I've ever done. He said.
Starting is what, though? That's the question.
Tyler, if you put that in the chat, regular chat now, I'll keep an eye out on it. Let them know. For speeding ticket 47 minutes ago, thanks for filling the void of my heart with lore. Dankula just did a video about the I don't know. I don't like the possibility of how I'm supposed to pronounce that word.
It's probably Kagos.
Okay. Where he said they may have been descendants of the Cathars, but he doesn't think that he's theological enough to do a video on the Cathars. Might be a good video for you guys.
I definitely could cover the Cathars. This is one of those issues where it's like, would YouTube show it to people? And no, they would not.
What exactly are the Cathars?
The other name was Albigensians. They were a Gnostic sect that developed in the late 12th century, I want to say. And
very popular in southern France.
Yeah, and they were basically just yet another Gnostic sect that had generally a lot of the same beliefs as the early Gnostics. Dualist philosophy, there's a good god and a bad god. The spiritual world is good, the physical world is evil, and then a bunch of really other weird stuff like since the physical world is evil, then it would be an act of evil to bring children into it, but also sex is great. Yeah, they weren't really hurting anyone, but they were getting popular, and the church did not take that well.
So they set fire to basically all of them.
Yeah, there's a very famous event called the Massacre at Béziers, where It's very likely, because the city continued to function after this happened, it's very likely that the casualty numbers are exaggerated.
And the story is apocryphal.
Yes. But the way the story goes, and it's written down by one of Arnaud Amalric himself did write about it. He was the bishop in command. He was the papal legate. That's the other thing too. He wasn't just a bishop in command of the army. He was the Pope's chosen man.
Yeah.
And this has been one of my arguments against Roman Catholics every time I get in debates with them about, their church being the true church and the Pope being the successor of Peter and stuff like that.
I got to say, if everyone else is wiped out, it is.
That's true.
Just saying. And they were doing a damn good job against the Cathars.
They sure did.
As it was.
Because they lay siege to Béziers. And to their credit, they did tell a lot of the people that they were welcome to leave if they were Catholic.
Yep.
There's good reason to not trust that was true. That the people would not have actually been allowed to leave, or they would have been taken hostage or something like that. What ends up happening is that there is a battle at the city. In fact, I believe the defenders actually kind of like sally outside of the walls to try and like do a show of force, and it ends up leading to a battle, if I'm remembering correctly. The French forces, which were working with the Catholics, they rush into the city. And they start killing people left and right because right before the battle, one of the commanders went to Bishop Arnaud Amalric, or Abbot Arnaud Amalric, I should say, and said something along the lines of, this is the apocryphal part, is exactly what.
Exactly. That's
the fact the massacre happened is not.
No.
And the numbers given, Amalric himself wrote a report on this. The response to the question, how will we know who's Catholic? How do we know who to spare? Amalric is said to have said, kill them all, God will recognize his own. Which, listen, does go hard.
Yes, it does.
That does go hard as a quote. I cannot deny that. At the same time, they killed a lot of Catholics. Like, we don't even really know how many of the people they killed were which, because one of the places they killed them was inside of a cathedral.
You can't ask a dead body at that point as to what faith they are without some kind of signifying mark or something that would identify them as such.
Yeah. So this was a situation where this was a group of people who had Gnostic beliefs, who were definitely not practicing Christians. But they also weren't violent. They weren't committing crimes. They weren't besieging cities. They weren't trying to rebel against the government. They were just kind of there.
This, mind you, was declared to be a crusade. That also, people think like the Crusades was just the Middle East. No, there were many different crusades. The Reconquista was a crusade. The Baltic Crusade that was going into Lithuania. This crusade, there were many different
crusades. The invasion of England was almost a crusade.
Yeah. The Battle of Varna against the Ottomans, that was declared to be a crusade.
Yep. So, that's the gist on the Cathars. Their beliefs were just kind of weird. But yeah, that was the dark period in church history.
Yeah.
By the way, Tyler said he was starting with the Byzantines.
Oh, okay. Hold on. I mean, if it's starting as the emperor, I mean, fair enough, but it's always fun to start. I mean, it's a classic. It's a classic. Fair enough. Fair enough. I'll grant you that.
Oh boy.
All right. We got a question for you specifically.
It's better to recreate it if you're playing an EU4 and you're starting in 1444 and the Byzantines own quite literally only Constantinople and the southern tip of Greece, like Sparta.
Or
that's it. And then when you take back all the territory, great.
Or you play as the true successor of the Roman Empire.
Russia.
Wales.
If you want to find out more about what he's talking about, watch History Unhinged.
There we go. Next.
Next is a question specifically for Steven from Pumpkin Bear, saying, what food from ancient Rome would you eat on a monthly basis?
Oh, panis, definitely.
What is that?
Bread.
Well, I mean, they have that here. So especially for the Eastern Romans, they had a thing that was basically, it was honey fritters. So imagine like bread, honey, date syrup, and milk. And what they would do is they would basically create a Mediterranean French toast that had like honey and date syrup. I would damn well eat that.
So I just realized we need to invite a chef on History Unhinged and do like historical
history with Max Miller.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I
I
forgot
just
about
keep
that.
forgetting to reach out to him because I'm not good at that.
Ironically, that recipe that I just described, that I learned about from him.
Just
I have spoken to him. He was going to come on my show, but it never lined up from the time.
He does seem like he's a busy guy.
give me the means to message.
Okay, I will.
T-Rex Gaming for $5 says, would love a deep dive on the Tuscan lead crosses. Mainstreamers write them off as a hoax, but I'm not convinced. Would love to see them researched.
I've never heard of this. Hang on.
Tuscan, like lead, as in actual like lead?
I would imagine. LEAD. Tuscan lead crosses.
Tuscan artifacts, Tuscan lead crosses, collection of inscribed lead objects, including crosses, swords, and other artifacts discovered. Oh, wait. Tuscan or Tucson?
This says Tuscan.
Oh, Tucson. Yeah, it's Tucson lead crosses. Tucson.
Yeah, this is TUSCAN.
Not finding anything about
Yeah.
Tuscan lead
The
crosses.
Tucson lead crosses or silver bell artifact. This is why it's a conspiracy, because of course there would be crosses in Tuscany. Of course there would be. It's like, what the?
That's a very legitimate place for there to be lead crosses.
A collection of 31 lead objects, including crosses, swords, and other relics, discovered near Tucson, Arizona in 1924, inscribed with medieval Latin and Hebrew. They spark controversy, with proponents claiming that they prove a Roman Jewish colony existed in 8th or 9th century Arizona. Because of all fucking places, of course it would be Arizona.
Who came up with this?
While skeptics argue that they are modern forgery. Yeah, no, they're forgeries. Of course, that wouldn't. Yeah, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, so here's the thing. The reason they're asking us to look into it is because that's the thing we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if there's enough to it to do a video, I definitely can look into it. I mean, let's see.
Okay. Also, discovery of this, 1924. That's the time frame in this here. I need to specify something right now that was going on in history. The sheer amount of hoaxes that occur in the late 1800s going into the early 1900s is baffling. And the key reason why a lot of this happens is this mix of modern, like acceptance of modern science combined with religious beliefs and an understand, like this idea of, oh yes, like, I'm now ranting at this point.
Fine, go for it.
Yep.
You know how there's that phrase of we live in the modern day and age, etc., and it's like this idea or understanding that, of course, because we live in today's day and age, we are better than people were in the past. We understand and know more. Our science, etc., is perfect. We know these things. They had the exact same thought process that occurred over the course of the 1800s, heading into the early 1900s, where there was this belief in absolute faith in one's ability, authority, and scientific technology of the day. It's one of the reasons why the early trips to the Antarctic crashed and burned and so many people died. But there was a rise of a new type of spiritualism along with racial beliefs that you would see occur in the late 1800s to the early 1900s that would tie in genetics along with religion. And it was really big. Yeah. Like the most classic example that I could probably give of all this that is insane is Liebenfels, which was an Austrian monk who practiced something called theozoology.
We talked about this on History Unhinged.
Yeah, which if you want to see that, go check it out. It's absolute batshit insanity. But
History Unhinged is like this episode, but with less anger and more laughter.
Yeah.
It is a pretty enjoyable show to even just do.
It's more of a comedy show, really, about history.
Although the last episode we did was pretty
one we shot today was pretty serious.
Yeah. I will say, moving forward really quickly, JMO is asking, are we realists or nominalists?
In what definition of the...
Absolutely no idea.
You have your phone? Yeah, but I don't know what you're asking. What are you asking?
Also, are we ordering Indian? Is that what's happening?
That's what's happening.
Okay. All right. Nominalists.
You're going to want to look up nominalism.
Philosophers who believe that abstract concepts such as properties, numbers, and universals do not exist as real entities, but are merely names or labels. I would imagine realists essentially are the opposite, which is you believe this table exists.
I have never even considered the question, so I don't know how to give you an answer.
Yeah, I'm definitely a realist.
I don't know what I don't understand. I don't know the definitions of the terms well enough.
Usually when applied into geopolitics, realist is a term that is applied for, so realpolitik, that specifically occurred out of the 19th century heading into the early 20th century. Bismarck is one of the key proponents specifically of that, with the idea being that countries are inherently logical and selfish.
Okay.
That they're going to do what they want to, even if it seems contradictory to ideology. And so, I mean, when I was first going to college, I thought, yeah, I'm a total realist. And then like, no, it's a little bit more complicated than that. But that was something that kind of made sense.
All right.
I don't know about nominalist necessarily, but realist in terms of geopolitics is that.
Yeah, I don't know what the context of the question is.
The next question is, Arbor Irrigation Installer is asking, please play F, Marry, Kill with the first and second triumphants. Twunk Aiden said Caesar would be a tender lover. We must know how.
I did say that.
When did you say that?
I don't know, but I know I said it. That's the part that's so upsetting, really.
So it's Pompey, Caesar, and Crassus.
Yes. We'll say caress, marry, kill.
Caress, marry, kill.
I mean, you know what we're saying, but we're gonna use a.
I know. All right, immediate. I know what I would do here. Kill Crassus. Dude is a whiny bitch from among everything. Absolutely, I'd want him out of the picture.
It's not wrong to say.
Marry Caesar, caress Pompey. Okay. I would say. And I would say that for Pompey.
Caesar would be a tender lover.
Yeah, and I feel like Pompey being literally called Pompey the Great, I feel like he'd have a bit of an ego on his shoulder that he would want to perform well in that scenario. And then afterwards, but I can't imagine that it would actually necessarily go all that great. You'd want to leave it at that point. Whereas Caesar seems like a better long-term strategy.
Yeah. I think I feel like I'd have to swap them.
My wife wants to know if I'm the top or he is the top in that scenario.
That is a fair question. Let's assume you're the top.
All right.
I'm not gonna lie, I can't imagine you not being the top in that scenario.
All right. My wife is laughing in the background as this is being said.
It's very funny. She's laughing right now.
Thanks for your show of support
you poor
in
man.
this scenario. If I'm going to get lovingly caressed by a 2,000-year-old man,
would he actively be 2,000 years old in this scenario?
I mean, I can only imagine it's like there's a show or manga called Grifters, which is really cool about historical people all across from history going into a fantasy world where they then, it is an anime. I know you fucking hate that, Aiden, but it is legitimately an extremely cool premise that it's historical figures from across history get transported into this fantasy world where they then have to, they basically are fighting each other and then leading armies and things against one another. There's an entity called the Empire, which actually appears to have been founded by Hitler.
Okay.
I'm not even kidding. Who was referred to as the Great Father that then died.
Really quickly here, when did we get off of banging Caesar?
Oh, no, we were always on that here, apparently. And
we're
then,
always banging
and then
Caesar.
it just went over to...
Personally, I would also kill Crassus. Just to be clear, I would also kill Crassus. I wouldn't even change how the Persians did it. I think that was totally on brand. I just think that was kind of based. Now, here's the thing. Pompey, he's got accolades. He's set.
He is literally Pompey the Great. People make fun of him, but he legit was actually an amazing military leader. He was the rival of Caesar.
And he's loyal.
He was.
Loyalty is important in a long-term relationship. Caesar, he's frisky and fun. But is he going to be by your side when you really need him?
Yeah.
I'm marrying Pompey, and I'm caressing Caesar.
Okay, so you're going to take that 2,000-year-old boning.
Sure. What about the second triumvirate?
Oh.
A little harder.
It is.
I don't really know anything about Lepidus.
I mean, by that logic, going into all of it here, Lepidus wasn't anything. That's the whole point.
Oh, right.
Lepidus.
Who was I mixing him up with? Who was the other one?
No, like it was, hold on.
Oh, he was part of the tribe.
Yeah, no, what I'm saying, he wasn't anything. What I mean is that he didn't have any like major accolades to him like it was the case of Octavian and Mark Antony.
Yeah.
That was the whole point, is that they needed a third in order to balance them out, because otherwise
for me, for me on this, I'm going to marry Octavian because he's in a good position. He's going to provide for me. Now, you might think Mark Antony would be somebody you would want to be with, but I know he'd just use me the way he did Cleopatra. Or maybe Cleopatra used him.
Yeah.
It's really, you can go either way on it. Though I don't trust Mark Antony.
Though he was an able military commander.
If I caressed Caesar, the whole I come to bury him, not to praise him thing, I don't know. But, I don't know. I'm gonna marry Octavian. I'm gonna caress Lepidus, and I'm gonna murk Mark.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I mean, this whole thing with Lepidus, though he was an able military commander and proved a useful partisan of Caesar, Lepidus has always been portrayed as the least influential member of the triumvirate. He typically appeared as a marginalized figure in depictions of the event of the era, most notably in Shakespeare's plays. While some scholars have endorsed this view, others challenge it, saying that the evidence is insufficient to discount it and is likely an effect of propaganda from his opponents, especially Cicero and later Augustus. So, I mean, hold on. How does he actually die? I don't even remember what ends up happening him.
Lepidus?
Yeah, Lepidus negotiated agreements. What do we have in here in the first place? Fall from power, 36 BC after the Sicilian revolt. Okay, hold on. Spending the rest of his life in relative obscurity, Lepidus was apparently obliged to return to Rome periodically to participate in Senate business. Octavian, now known as Augustus, is said to have belittled him by always asking for his vote last. Lepidus died peacefully in late 13 BC, upon which Augustus was elected to the position of Pontifex Maximus. You know what? I'm gonna take a challenging thing in here. I'd say actually marry Lepidus.
Really?
And here's why. The period of sheer amount of instability and backstabbing and everything that is taking place in the early Roman period, the amount of families that rose and fell, crashing and burning during this time, I actually don't want to take any risks in that. He lived he was marginalized in that sense. He was on the outskirts. He was never seen as a threat. And if there is anything that you could see in Rome as being possibly safe, it is not being seen as a threat.
That's fair.
So I would say I would marry him. I would caress Octavian because, again, by that, Octavian wins, therefore more likely to look upon me favorably.
True.
And kill Mark Antony because dude was an absolute fucking simp.
Yeah.
Holy shit, the dude was a simp.
Yeah.
Pisses me off.
That said, I do think Shakespeare's Mark Antony speech is one of the best pieces of literature ever written. God, it's good. You know what I'm talking about? Of course you don't. Mr. didn't read the Constitution till yesterday.
Look, brother, it's not my fault. My high school decided to.
Did you read Caesar? Did you read Julius Caesar?
No, we read. What did we read from Shakespeare? We read Othello. We read Romeo and Juliet. We read
Hamlet, I'm guessing.
Yeah, Hamlet was one of them.
Always a classic.
And then there was Macbeth.
All right. Yeah, Julius Caesar is a good one to read, just to read overall. Also, before anybody in the comments gets mad that I made a joke about him not having read it, we've been joking about these things all day.
Yeah, I went to a definitively good school and didn't learn or read a lot of weird things.
There were things that they should have read that they didn't for some reason.
Yeah,
that everybody else did. But no, Mark Antony's speech, I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him, is just a really good commentary on propaganda. And there's the repeated line of basically him saying, "You have been told that Caesar was ambitious by Brutus. But Brutus is an honorable man." Basically this continued back to he's talking about how what you all think about Caesar isn't how I knew him. The Caesar I knew was a man who could be ambitious, yes, and he could be cruel, but he did good things for Rome. He improved Rome. He made Rome a better place. But you've all heard from Brutus that Caesar was an ambitious man, and Brutus is an honorable man. So basically the should you trust authorities? Should you trust people's reputations when they're in positions of power and when they're speaking about their opponents? So just a very good speech, something that everybody should read, especially in times like these.
Agree. Next question is from Stop Motion Dilophosaurus or Ditoptosaurus, saying, what is the conspiracy theory that you like?
Ooh.
I actually like. Oh, that is
I mean, depending on how conspiratorial we're getting, I do like Atlantis. I do like that there's a lost advanced civilization out there that we haven't found yet.
And when you say advanced, specifically,
I'm talking about like Copper Age. I am not talking about whatever the hell is going on Twitter right now. I think some people by the ocean might have figured out how copper works, and that would have been pretty cool.
I'll go for that same vein of thought. I personally love the idea that Atlanta is actually Atlantis.
I love the idea.
Which, for anyone who has not somehow seen that in the last 2 months, at the time that we're recording this, that this is live, that is an actual major, I say major, it is a conspiracy theory that has drawn in hundreds, if not thousands of people in Atlanta, Georgia, who are trying to say that they are, in fact, descendants of the original Atlanteans, and that African Americans had always been here. That they were already in America and then were enslaved by the Europeans who showed up and took away their Atlantean culture. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, it's not good.
I like whether it's the Vikings or Madoc that Europeans got here much earlier than we thought.
Those are fun too.
Because I genuinely think that even if it's not Madoc, even if it's not from the Eric the Red or like any of the Vinland Saga, somebody made it here sooner than we thought.
I like the what ifs of that. I like the idea of the Vikings showing up potentially even earlier. And then specifically, there is a thing within, for anyone who's played Crusader Kings or whatnot, the idea of sunset invasion, which is, in my opinion, one of the most simple, and yet while it doesn't necessarily really work, it is such a fun premise of what if the Native Americans, specifically with like Viking longships, had made their way, at least the technology had, all the way down to the Aztecs, who then actually modernized somewhat their society and then proceeded to launch a counter invasion into Europe.
Yeah.
I say counter invasion. They are the ones who show up in 1492 in Spain, bringing their own plague instead. Yeah. It's
interesting.
It's interesting.
And there are, to be fair, there are stories that come out of the pre-Viking era that can be interpreted as being about lands to the west. And we know that the Irish were in Iceland before the Vikings got there, before the Norse got there. Could they have also gone further west? Could they have gone to Greenland? Potentially. Typically boats that drift across the North Atlantic drift east. But maybe something could have happened that took them west, and you could have had Irish people in Greenland. You could have had Irish people in Labrador, in Newfoundland. It is possible. We do have stories about Irish explorers going west, but they're very, very fantastical.
By that logic, I do love as well the story of, it wasn't Mansa Musa, but I think it was actually his uncle or something.
There's a story about somebody sailing across the sea too.
Yeah. So of the Mali Empire down in Africa, there was actually, and this is a real thing, that there was a Mali emperor who specifically created a fleet, boarded a ship, and sailed with a bunch of them, determined to find lands to the west, and he never returned. And there is theories to this day now that they washed up on shore down in Brazil or elsewhere, and that's where there is some kind of lost African civilization that is there. And no, they all appear to have died at sea, as there's no record or archaeology or anything that has ever been discovered. But there was, and it's not made up to say this, there was an actual real attempt by some leader in Mali to do this. It just doesn't appear to have worked. But if it did, if it had, that would be fascinating.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it is 8:44.
Okay.
We still have quite a number of questions before 7:30.
Let's move through this fast.
Let's keep going. About it.
Yes. So the next thing is from Kellen, a good patron and friend of the channel, the Lore Lodge, that has a statement for Mr. Bell.
All right.
And he says, Mr. Bell, it has been 2 years, and I still have ire to your statement at the end of your submarine warfare video that submarines are looking for a purpose in the modern day. Nuke triad to ISR, the sub is more important than ever.
Actually, in the modern day and age, with developments, especially with stealth technology, this is true, especially with how most submarines have been converted into essentially portable missiles, like carriers. That's what they largely are. Yeah, that's the thing. When talking about submarines for their intended use in warfare as they developed over time, they lost a lot of that purpose. However, what I would honestly argue is that what we have seen specifically arising out of the Russo-Ukrainian war, I would make an argument that we will likely see development of submarines, not major submarines, but small submarines that will serve as portable drone carriers, like mini aircraft carriers, that are able to drop off hundreds, if not thousands of drones at a time over areas. I agree with you. At the time that I made that video, that was prior to all of these things that have developed, and my thinking on that has changed precisely because of how we've seen warfare change. And guess what? That is literally what happens with warfare. It does that. It evolves over time as new technologies come about.
For context, Kellen is a recently retired submariner. So that's for the Navy. So that's where his ire originated from, is because he spent his entire career in them. He also did just leave a comment that was an excerpt from Dracula Flow 3, which I think is phenomenal.
From what?
I'll read it to you. You'll recognize it. I have seen the Magna Carta. I have seen the Eye of Horus. I was flipping bricks for Mansa Musa before y'all were even a Type 1 civilization. This shit don't mean nothing to me, man.
I can't remember what this is from.
It's Dracula Flow.
But I don't know why I should recognize it.
First of all, we watched it with Wendigoon when we last visited. He was the one who introduced us to it. I'm fairly certain it's Joji and a few people, with the guy in the Dracula costume with the sunglasses reading off of a script.
Oh, that.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that now.
Yeah. Have you seen this?
No.
Okay, we'll have to watch it.
Yeah. All right. Next is this guy saying, very good to have Skuy on and excited for new History Unhinged. Christina Petruta, I think is an interesting comment. Not a question, but much love from Transylvania.
Perfect with the vampires.
Yeah, God bless you. And this is top tier content, yet is free for us to watch.
Oh, thank you. There's also not free content for you to watch if you're interested.
Yes. Lincoln Fleetwood said the WEF ended my long-term relationship.
That I believe.
Yes. Tyler Downpurple said, the big difference between a conspiracy theory and a conspiracy theory, some are good points about things that don't add up, and some are schizophrenia.
Yeah. That's the thing. Most conspiracy theories start with a legitimate question, and then a bunch of whack jobs just get involved and start asking not legitimate questions.
Most people also at the same time misunderstood the word theory. They think it's like someone proposing a question. That's not the case. Theory is something that is already usually backed up by some kind of premise, and then you're expanding upon it.
Although, if I remember correctly, isn't there something too, like the CIA creating the term conspiracy theory?
There is something
of CIA creating modern art.
Yeah, I thought that was
forgive them for.
Wait, I thought that was specifically in relation to the JFK assassination.
That's what I thought too, but I might be misremembering it. Anyway, the CIA did modern art.
Can we make that video?
Yeah, probably. I hate modern art.
I hate it.
Yeah, it's horrible.
I'm happy to talk about it.
It's just a money laundering scheme. Anyway, next up.
It's a scheme to actually confuse the Russians.
Oh, that's right, because weren't they really like getting into realism, and they were trying to show how amazing they were in their art to promote communism?
From what I understand, it was basically the Americans, like the Russians, having art and doing art, and the Americans going, we're going to make art that's so incomprehensibly pointless and pretend it means something, to the point where they think we're philosophically way ahead of them.
I love the theory, but modern art already had kind of come into existence before communism ever took over Russia.
I'll send you
out of like Dadaism and things like that.
So it occurred. A lot of the modernist movement for art specifically arose out of the horrors of World War I, which broke a lot of the conceptions that people specifically had of grounded reality.
Yeah.
And that's where you start to see things get really weird with a lot of art.
When you say modern art, it sounds like you're thinking about Picasso, like that kind of modern art. When I say modern art, I mean a canvas that's been painted red, and I'm supposed to believe it has.
Well, so that's the thing, is that Picasso was the start of
that's modern. So there's modern art.
Yeah.
That's from what I'm describing. And then modern art literally begins post-World War One, and then it evolves into postmodern and absurdist, and then it splits off into many different areas from there.
Yes, I think you're using modern art in the proper art history definition. I'm using modern art in a very colloquial way to mean art that's not art.
Oh, I agree. I wrote an entire paper in high school that I actually got an F on for how much I hate modern art, and my teacher was not happy.
This is actually a class I took when I was studying abroad in London. It was specifically how the First World War affected art to that degree and the outfall of that.
Yeah.
I'll find the paper I was reading.
Cool. Elena de Howler Werewolf Queen has asked a couple questions. The first one we've already discussed. The second one is favorite/most believable cryptid/fantasy critter for those at the table. Also, she's asking if we want a book that is called Signs and Symbols.
Sure, I'll take a book. As for favorite cryptid, honestly, Sasquatch is making a comeback in my rankings.
Same.
The more I learn about the lore behind it, the more I'm like, this is cool. I just like this.
I gotta say, I want to almost agree, but I've agreed ever since like I ever played Red Dead Redemption, and there's the whole thing in Undead Nightmare.
I haven't played Undead Nightmare.
So you don't know what I'm talking about then? I'm not going to spoil it for you, but you're going to feel so bad.
Oh, okay.
You all know what I'm talking about for anyone who's played. You understand.
That's the original Red Dead Redemption, right?
Yes,
The DLC?
it is. Yes.
Also,
Which was such a good story. It was so good.
Just,
Do you want me to kind of spoil it for you for that
okay.
mission?
It's okay. I think I have an idea of what you're going to say, I think, but
Speaking of Red Dead, I had a conversation with Celso during the event last week, and apparently, I don't know how intentional it was, but Red Dead and Red Dead 2 were extremely influenced by the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Huh.
Like the plots line up heavily.
That makes a degree of sense. Yeah.
Yep.
That might be a fun video.
Yeah,
That could be a fun one. Yeah, I love Red Dead Redemption. I only played one, like, casually at a friend's house who had it. I played the entirety of Red Dead 2 last year. And I knew the ending. I knew what happens. And I still cried.
Yep.
I don't cry much. And I cried. Because, like, even when you know it's coming, and you know it's coming in the moment, like you're there and you're like, oh, this is it. This is the last mission. It's over. I know what's going to happen to me as this character. And still, despite all of that,
it hits.
I was watching a Comic-Con or something panel with some of the voice actors. And what I didn't know at the time, it was not just animation. It was motion capture. For a lot of that game. And the guy who played Dutch even said that at that moment, and I don't know if you know what we're talking about here at all, but at that moment when that final scene plays out, he said that he, like, as Dutch, backed up the slope that they had to, make that rock, and got off camera and just started crying. And then it happened. They did like 11 takes, and he kept crying after every single one. And I was like, geez. Yeah, it really, I mean, I've always felt that video games are one of the best. The greatest thing about video games is not their ability to allow people who don't get to live in the same place to play games together. That's great. That's one of the ways I stay in touch with my friends who have moved away. It's not just that. It's not the visual medium. It is the storytelling ability. Because it is the first time that people have been able to step into a story.
Yeah.
And live it, be part of it. And I think that's the thing about video games that often gets left aside, when people talk about them as a waste of time or whatever. No, playing Red Dead Redemption 2, yeah, it's a lot of fun, but you're also playing through what I would argue is one of the best Western stories ever written.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a good number of Western films. Like, it is genuinely one of the best Westerns ever written.
I agree.
Yeah, it's part of the reason that I love film and why I went to school for it, and ideally, do want to make movies at some point, is because in my mind, it was actually a conversation I had with myself in high school, because I have a lot of different interests, a lot of things that I wanted to do, and I was like, what is the one interest of mine that can encompass as many of the things that I'm interested as possible? And in my mind, it was film. both in terms of being able to explore any given interest at any point in time, but also it is the culmination of all art. You know, it is music, it is sound, it is visuals, it is color, it is all of these things. But then you look at video games and where they are today and where they have been for the last 10, 20 years is films that you participate in, that you get to step into and make choices and experience in a four-dimensional way, in a sense. So yeah, I think that's a really poignant thing to say. Next is from RB Renegation Installer saying, I've never re-listened to my pastor's sermons, but I listened to History Unhinged at least 3 or 4 times. Keep up the good work and pregame more too.
Oh, pregame more for History Unhinged? You want us drinking at 11 a.m.?
I could get very unhinged. Oh, we're probably going to end up doing some of that here tomorrow with Choi.
Oh, is he here tomorrow?
Well, he flies in like tomorrow evening.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if we're going to film anything tomorrow.
We're having our first guest on. We actually are getting our first ever guest tomorrow to begin recording.
Yeah, and I did not expect it to be somebody as big as that, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. Someone I think you should watch is Debunking. He says he is a neutral force in all this. What do you think about Debunking from Slow Motion?
Let's say Debunking.
Oh, Debunking, yeah. We don't know, but we'll look into him.
I'll look into him. I don't know anything about it. So I can't tell you what I think if I don't know.
Susanna Cornett asks, were Tartarians the same as the ancient aliens?
In that, well, no, the Tartarians actually existed. They just were a group of steppe nomads living in Central Asia, east of Russia.
Yeah. So the conspiracy, even when they're talking about like, oh, with ancient aliens, I don't know why they would just apply the term. Well, I mean, we do know why they applied the term Tartaria, because essentially everything that was from what we would think of like the steppe part of Ukraine heading all the way east into Siberia was collectively referred to as just Tartaria. It was the land beyond Russia and the steppe. Like that's what it was. So you would see this idea of Tartaria as a super empire on maps, but no, it literally was just unclaimed land by any great empire. That's it. It's the steppe. That's all.
All right. I'm just watching some of the Debunking's shorts, trying to figure out.
Got it. Black Kane for $5 says, I think ancient aliens, Tartaria, and flat Earth are psyops to discredit more genuine questions like those from Hancock and Randall Carlson.
I don't think it's a psyop. I think it's literally grifters. I think that's the whole point. I don't like it's people who are out there to make money. No matter what it is that you're looking at, whether it's medicine or some other kind of invention in history for people who are trying to create the same thing, and they create like 4 different variants and one is clearly more efficient, but the ones who are worse at their invention are going to try and shit on the one that's actually good because they want to get the recognition and priority for what they made.
It would be considerably easier for big archaeology or academia or the government or whoever to just prop up people like us. It'd be much easier to do that than it would be to create a false narrative that they might lose control over and then prop up guys like Jimmy Corsetti.
Yeah.
And I can tell you this much, we are not being propped up by the government. I wish we were being propped up by the government.
The amount of times I have been accused of being a CIA plant
me too.
For different things.
Yeah, it's constant.
And it's funny because the next video I have coming out literally tomorrow is actually in defense of a Chinese mega project. And that is something that, for anyone who's seen any stuff that I make, that's not something they would expect from me.
No. Yeah, it's crazy how often it's pushed, but the fact of the matter is, people just think that people think that these conspiracy theories are stupid, and they're happy to say that without being paid to say it.
Yeah. Next is Alec Katori for $20 saying, about the flat Earth theory, I've just seen a video where several flat Earthers went to Antarctica to prove their theory due to it being summer, there should be a 24-hour sun, and several of them stopped believing in it.
Yeah, Jaron is the big one. Jaron has, from what I understand, left the entire flat Earth movement, community, whatever you want to call it. Took him a little longer than I would have expected, but he did come around. He's now been re-examining a lot of things, and I will say this: we need to not make fun of him. Like, I know he was a big voice for the flat Earthers. I know that the opportunity to gloat and the urge to do so are very, very strong. But what happened with Jaron is that he believed something ridiculous. He was confronted with incontrovertible evidence that it was ridiculous, and then he changed his mind.
Something that we
More
should
than what a lot of people are capable of doing.
Yeah. That is admirable. That is what we want to see. And I try to it's kind of like with Michael Button, what I experienced in the last week or so. When I see something like that from somebody who might be genuine in their belief, I try to approach it gently and, hey, I think you might have some misconceptions here. Like, it's only once somebody makes it clear that they're a grifter and they have no interest in being honest that I will drop the hammer and I'll just start being mean to them and trying to discredit them. But Jaron did the right thing. He was presented with evidence. He accepted it. He acknowledged it, internalized it, and then he changed his mind. Guys like Austin Whitsitt, they're grifters. Whitsitt told us live on air that if we could prove to him that you could see the sun for 24 hours straight in Antarctica, it would be impossible on a flat Earth. That is not something that can happen on a flat Earth. He went down, saw the 24-hour sun. He came back and tried to figure out how you can work a 24-hour sun into the flat Earth model. Yeah. Sorry, Austin. I thought you were just a grifter. I think you might be the dumbest man alive. How do you get arrested by the National Park Service for free speech?
Oh my God.
You're like, how do you get arrested by the National Park Service for talking? Do you know how dumb you have to be?
Or just how steadfast of a sovereign citizen you have to be.
Oh boy.
Pseudo legend for $20 says, "May the milk lead the flat earthers and the Tartarians to the truth. Praise be to the milk. All hail the not cult milk cult."
All hail.
John R for $50. Thank you very much.
You.
Says, "Hey, Mr. Lodge, I was wanting to ask this during the Weird Bible live stream, but can never catch it live. Anyway,"
Can we?
yeah, literally. Anyway, the Bible says that Aed stabbed King Eglon, and it mentions that that dirt comes out. Does that mean he defecated in his pants when he died?
Wait, hang on. Wait. Let me see the...
Go ahead and read it.
The dirt came out upon being stabbed. I think, dirt is actually a colloquial term that would refer to waste for humans. I think that actually is what that means.
Yeah, it does make sense.
I'll admit that is not a passage I'm super familiar with, but let me, it was Ehud? Who?
Yeah. EHUDD.
Ehud kills Eglon. That is Judges 3:12 through 30.
And that is also the last before 7:30.
All right, cool. Are there any others that are interesting from after 7:30 that would be a good last question?
Let me look.
Judges. Well, so Yahweh strengthened Eglon, king of Moab, against Israel because they did evil in the eyes of Yahweh. He gathered to himself the Ammonites and the Amalekites, and he went and defeated Israel, and they took possession of the city of palms. And Ehud came up to him while he was sitting alone in his cool upper room, and Ehud said, "I have a message from God for you." Baller. So he got up from his seat. Then Ehud reached with his left hand for the sword on his right thigh, and he thrust it into his stomach, and the handle also went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade because he did not draw back the sword from his stomach, and it went protruding out the back. And Ehud went out the vestibule, and he closed the doors of the upper room and locked them behind him. After he left, his servants returned. When they saw the doors of the upper room were locked, they thought, surely he is relieving himself in the cool inner room. And they waited so long, they became embarrassed because he did not open the doors of the upper room. So they took the key and opened the doors, and there their king was lying on the ground dead. I'm not sure what they're referencing.
If there's a translation and it is saying specifically that he was stabbed through the stomach, one of the things that in the stomach, if it has gone through from the intestines that are sitting there, there is a possibility that if the intestines were actually cut and you had waste that was being formed from the intestines and it refers to dirt, it could be the formation of excrement.
It could be. I'm just not finding the exact line.
Maybe we will look into it deeper off air and then talk about it. I don't think that worked.
What did it say again?
I gotta find it. When the Bible says that Aed stabbed King Eglon and it mentions that the dirt comes out, does that mean...
I don't see anything about the dirt coming out. I mean, here's the thing. Based on the context of the passage, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, that is, and also when you die, your bowels do.
Yeah. Yeah. And the last one I think could be interesting is from Alex Mallet for $10 saying, how do the Neanderthal and other pre-human species fall within the biblical scope of creation? I'd love to hear the thoughts you guys have either here or more in depth on Weird Bible. Good luck getting Weird Bible.
They don't. It's one of the big problems that we're trying to figure out with Genesis is how does this fit in?
Well, wait. Isn't it known or assumed that there were other people outside of Eden?
There's no textual... There's no concrete argument to be made from the text about what was going on outside of Eden.
Okay.
Basically the position is that that I hold is where the Bible doesn't make sense with our current understanding of reality, it must be that we're not understanding the Bible correctly.
My interpretation of that, especially from when I was a kid and going through and looking at that, especially since I was really big into dinosaurs and everything else that was going on, was that I always understood it as not a literal translation, as more so like, as an example, the creation in the total of 7 days is not actually 7 days. That each day is a time period of an uncertain amount in which things came into formation. So I take a lot of what is then described as being, again, you could use the term apocryphal, you could use the term that is symbolic, etc. That is how I would interpret it. That this is not something that would be able to be just obviously written down as obviously this is how this happened, but more so this is just another example of how humans would try to interpret what came before, what was the early history like, and that's it. It's like I look at it as more symbolic than actual literal.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is how much of the Bible is obviously not a book where you're supposed to take every single word, every single story as something that literally happened. We know that because Jesus deliberately tells parables over and over again. He talks about things in metaphor and in symbolism and things like that, and he often does that very deliberately, very explicit. That's what he's doing. Might not be said, and here we have the parable of this, but Jesus will be saying something, and you're like, okay, this is not meant to be understood as a real thing that happened. Like the prodigal son, for example. There wasn't an actual prodigal son. That was him talking about how when somebody leaves the faith and then comes back, they should be welcomed, not treated, not punished for spending time away. Basically, they should be welcomed back. It should be a celebration when somebody leaves the faith and then comes back to it. The parable of the talents. It's not an actual vineyard where there were people coming in and working at different times of the day. It's a story that is to be understood that, your reward is the same no matter how late you came to Christ in your life. So the parable of the talents, the way it works is that a man owns a vineyard and he goes out and he says, I'm hiring workers for my vineyard. I'll pay you 1 drachma, I think it was, something like that, a day to come and work. And so people come early in the morning. And then, some people come later in the day as he's looking for more laborers. And there are some people who show up right before the shift is over. They really don't do much work. They, and then the day is over, they go to line up to get paid and they get a talent too. They get paid just as much. I'm thinking of two different, not the parable of the talents. This is the parable of the vineyard. Parable of the talents is something else, but the same, the important part is that people are getting paid for not doing as much work. That's not a comment on economics. That's not a story about a real thing that happened. That's a way of saying that, first of all, if you come to Christianity at any point in your life, you will be welcomed into the heavenly reward that Christians receive. And it's also saying that we shouldn't be mad as Christians at other Christians at the fact that people who weren't Christian their entire life and converted months before their death get into heaven. We shouldn't be upset about it. Like, that's not what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
You came, and so you will be rewarded. That's the argument. It's not meant to be a literal story. How far back does that extend with the Old Testament? It's kind of hard to say. The book of Genesis takes place entirely in a prehistoric period. The book of Genesis, if you take the later dating, which I do, ends basically around 1600 with Joseph. Because the next thing that happens is the Israelites are in Egypt for 400 years. The next important thing is the Exodus.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard to know with Genesis. Genesis is more a book about why things happened than a book about what happened.
Or how.
Yep.
It is definitely poetry in a lot of places. There are some scholarly arguments about whether Genesis 1, 2, and 3 were all like the same story written at the same time, or if they are different variations of the same story. I don't like that argument. I don't think Genesis 1 and 2 are different accounts of like the same event written in different styles at different times. I don't like that idea. But yeah, I mean, personally, I think that whatever's going on in Genesis is about us becoming human. But what does that mean? It's clearly about the creation of the world and also the creation of humanity. Are Adam and Eve supposed to be understood as the actual first two humans? Or are they understood as the first two humans to know God, to know religion? Are they the first sentient humans? Is the whole thing an allegory about developing sentience?
Well, it's Adem Nasovan and Homo evictus.
Did you say Homo evictus?
Evictus.
I hate you.
I'm sorry. I don't know what else.
Here's the thing. Homo evictus would have been really funny because they got kicked out of the garden.
Homo evictus.
The unknown ancestor.
Homo evictus.
Well, yeah. Anyway, that's, I guess, where we're at.
With that, ladies and gentlemen.
Like it, subscribe it, check out History Unhinged, please.
Yes.
History Unhinged is the channel that we do with Steven, the channel that this is all for. And honestly, it's my favorite thing that we do. It's the most fun show we have.
Without a doubt.
Please check it out. And I believe we have Indian food being delivered now, so we got to get down there for that. All right. Thank you so much. We will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.